Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Blaze, which is going to be a 3 to 5 player game published by Heidelberg Games. Now, this game is going to be based on an older game called Durot, but in Durot, you try to lose the game. In Blaze, you try to win the game. So it's going to sort of like an inverse of it. Plus, there's neat, beautiful cards in this game, and they changed the numbering a little bit too for this game too. So it is more of like a spiritual successor to Durot. So let's go ahead down to the table here. I'm going to show you how to play Blaze, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you my final thoughts. All right, so this is Blaze, and Blaze is a 3 to 5 player card game that's based on the Russian classic Durot, which is played by millions of people worldwide. Durot is all about not being the loser. Blaze builds upon the unique gameplay of Durot, but is all about winning. So this game, instead of all about losing, is all about winning. So there's a slight difference between the game of Durot, obviously, and the game of Blaze. And being the last player with cards in your hand does not necessarily mean that you lose this game. So this game is going to be played over 2 rounds. And the way this is going to work is each player is going to get the 3 betting cards. So you're going to get 3 betting cards. You're going to have 2 ones and a 0. We're going to go over what those mean in a little bit. And then you're going to also look at this deck here. You have 3 A's and 3 B's. And the way this is going to work is for the first round, based on player count, you're going to place them in from highest to lowest. And then what I like to do is then I'll put the ones below it, which are going to be these B's, and I'll just place them all there. But basically, those 2 stacks are for round 1. This is round 1 here, and this is round 2. And based on player counts, you're going to maybe adjust these stacks a little bit. So if you're playing with 2 players here, you're only going to use the 1 and the 2, and the 2 and the 3 here. With 4 players, you're going to use the 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to use the 2, 3, 4. And then with 5 players, you're going to be using the 1, 2, 3, 4 and the 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how those stacks will get set up. So if we're playing for 5 players, we'll have the 4 through 1 here, and then we'll have the 2 through 5 on the other one. So now that that's set up here, and this is going to be scoring cards that you can get in the game here, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to shuffle up this deck, and you're going to deal out 5 cards to each player. So once you have dealt out your 5 cards to each player, you're going to evenly as possible split these decks. And then you're going to set one of the decks aside. And then you're going to flip the top card and place it like this. And this is going to be what the trump card is in the game. All right, so now there's 3 colors in the game. There's going to be the red, blue, and gold here. And they're going to go through 1 through 9, and there's going to be 1 of each number. In addition to that, I don't know if I have a Firebird, but we have these Firebirds. And the Firebirds can be either worth 0 or 10 points. So I'm going to show you how those work in a little bit. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get these cards basically out of the game. And this game is going to be played over 2 rounds. And each round has 2 phases. The first phase is players are going to try to improve their hands and avoid taking any more cards into their hands. Phase 2, players are going to try to get rid of their hands as soon as possible to win valuable feather cards. All right, so we're going to play this game in challenges. So let's say this is the first player here. We're going to flip these betting cards over because we're not going to use those yet, but we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start a challenge. Now, challenges are very important because they're going to get rid of low cards that you don't want in your hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play these 2 ones here. And what will happen is the player to my left is the one being challenged, and the player to their left, so this player over here, is my supporter, not their supporter, my supporter. And the way this is going to work is we know yellow is trump. So this player has to play a card that is red or blue that are greater than these values here, or a trump card. So when this player is looking at their hand here, they can go, oh, okay, well, I can either be able to reject what they put down, or I can pass, because I don't want to get rid of necessarily high cards, but I could play this would be valid, and this would be valid. Now, if I would have played the Firebird instead, so if I played that there, it would have been a 10. So when I play the Firebird, so the defending player plays the Firebird, they're worth 10 points. But when the active player plays the Firebird, or in a challenge here, they're worth 0 points. So they can be either 0 or 10. So now this person has met the challenge. You can only challenge up to a maximum of 5 cards in this game. But now we can go through and either the active player or the supporting player can add to this challenge here. So I can look at my hand and be like, nah, you know what? I'm good. And this player can look at their hand and be like, you know what I need to do? I need to get rid of this 2 and this 2. So I'm going to put those down. You're going to put one of them down. You don't have to put both of them down. And this player here is going to need to look at their hand. So what's going to happen is, can I reject these cards? Now, what happens if I can't reject the cards? So if I can't reject the cards or I pass, I'm going to get all these cards. However, if I can reject all these cards, they get discarded, which is nice. So it's the beginning. I might really want to be like, okay, I have met your challenge. Now a player could put a third one down, and in this case, they're going to go, you know what? I'm not going to put a third one down. But if I put a third one down and this player couldn't meet it, then they're going to have to draw all the cards. But for now, they did meet it, and we were done playing, so we could play it up to 5. These cards all get discarded, and everyone's going to draw up to their 5 cards. Now, a couple things happen here. So this player was able to reject all the cards that were put out. Because they were able to do that, they get to be the next active player, and they get to do the challenge. But if they didn't, so if they weren't able to reject all of them and they gained the cards, then they would have gained these cards and be skipped, and the player to their left would become the next active player. Couple quick notes. So if we're playing along here, so let's do another example. Let's say this player's ready to go because they rejected them all. They're going to take their turn. Oh, they have to put 2 down. They're going to put this 1 and 6 down. And this player now, player to their left, is going to be the player that has to reject all these cards, and this is going to be this player's supporter, so the active player's supporter. So this player is going to look at their cards, and they're going to say, okay, you know what? Here we go. I didn't really want to get rid of that card, and I didn't really want to get rid of a card, but I'll do it. The other option they can do is pass. And if they pass, what will happen is, so let's say I don't want to get rid of these cards. I'm really okay with these cards. I want to try to keep some of them. If they pass, now both players, if they wish, can continue adding to the challenge. So let's say, oh, wow, you passed. Well, I'm going to throw this one down, the supporter will. This player is going to look, and he's like, you know what, I don't really like that 4. They'll throw this down, and this player is going to be like, I like my hand as it is. So this player will draw up all these cards, and they'll go to their hand, and they will be skipped, and the next active player will be the person to their left. So that's how that works. You're going to continue on doing this until the deck runs out. You're going to draw every card, including this gold card here. And you also don't have to draw up. If you have more than 5 cards, you're just going to draw up to 5 cards. It is possible once this deck runs out that you'll have less than 5 cards, so that can happen. But once the deck has run out, we get into phase 2. So what's going to be phase 2? So phase 2 of the game is where you're going to bet. So what you're going to do is you have these 0 and 1 cards. You're going to bet on one person. Now 0 means you don't know, so you put that in front of them. You just don't know. 1 means that you think they're going to have cards left in their hand at the end of the game, so I won't bet on him. I'll say, you know what, you're going to have cards left at the end of the game. And they'll all place out bets. Now we're going to continue doing our challenges and stuff until someone runs out of cards. One big note in this game is the number of challenges that you can do in a game. So let's say I can put these down here and I have my own supporter and stuff, is limited to the number of cards that the active player has. So if I was down to 2 cards, this is the only 2 cards I can play, and so on. So that's one very important note for phase 2, and that has to deal with a lot of not having that 5 cards in your hand all the time. So how is this all going to work? Well, when you run out of cards here, you're going to grab a feather card. And those are the cards we set aside at the beginning of the game here. And it's going to be these A's. So the first person to get run out of cards is going to get a 4. Second person is going to get a 3. Third person is going to get a 2. And the fourth person is going to get a 1. And in a 5th player game, the last person keeps the cards in their hand. So you're basically, in the setup, you'll notice that you'll have one less feather card than there are players, and that's how that's going to work. And once we're all done with that, one player is going to have cards in their hand, and then we're going to go ahead and flip these betting cards. So if you were the person that had the cards left in your hand, this player would gain a point. If you weren't the person, and this card, let's say, was in front of this player, and I flip it, and they didn't have cards in their hand, they keep it. So that's how that point works. If you flip a 0, it just goes back to the active player. It's not a point. These cards will be stored in their point pile, along with their feather cards that they gained for points at the end of the game. Additionally, in this game, you can also bet on yourself. So if you wanted to bet on yourself and you feel that you're going to be the last person with cards at the end of the game, you can do so also. All right, so with the end of the first round, you're going to gather up all the cards that were from the first round of the game here. And once you have all those cards, you're going to shuffle them up, and you're going to deal out 5 cards to each player. Then you're going to take those remaining cards and remove them from the game. Bring back your second deck that you had set aside at the originally at the beginning of the game. Flip over the top card. This is now the trump card. And you can start a new round here, and this is going to be the final round. And once you go at the end of the final round, you're going to score up your points, and the person with the most points is going to win. All right, so that's how you play Blaze. Let's go up to the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on the game. All right, so that was Blaze. Card quality in this game is amazing. I love these metallic cards in here. They are very beautiful. They're very durable cards. I think that I'll be playing this game a lot, so I'm going to probably also sleeve it too to try to keep that as long as possible. I do think that the card quality in this game is good enough that you could just not sleeve it and play it a lot, and it'll be fine. But the cards are very beautiful in here. I love the art in the game, and the gameplay for this game is very, very interesting. I really like that, which was a hard thing for me to get my head wrapped around. I watched other people's how to play videos, and it really didn't click at all. But once it does, it's a really cool concept of where you're going to be challenging the other player, but you really just want to get rid of your low cards. You just want to have high cards for that second round. So you're not really trying to make the other player necessarily take more cards into their hand, because that can come around to bite you later on when they start putting down challenges and you're like, I have a really good hand. I don't really want to be throwing these high cards out. So it's really interesting, that strategy that comes along in the game. It doesn't seem like anything on the surface, but it is a big part of this game. You really just want these low cards to get out of the game and be gone and not have to worry about them. But you also sort of don't want to have your opponents be able to build up super awesome hands. So there's a little bit of push and pull in there. And I really like that where you have your starting player, your active player, and you have that supporting player, and then you have the player that's being targeted. That supporting player is very important because that active player sort of can lose control of things basically on the extending of the challenge on there, and they may want to get these cards out of the game, but that supporting player may be like, nah, I'm giving it to that guy. So there's going to be a little bit in that. This is just a really interesting game. It really is a game that you're just going to have to play. So once you play it, you can see all the, especially after your first game, you're going to be like, wow, that is not what I thought. It's just a really interesting strategy game, and it really changes the way that you're trying to view the game itself. So I do appreciate that a lot. I really think this is a pretty unique game, even though it's been based off of an older game. But it's also, I would consider, a family weight game. So this isn't actually that complicated to teach anyone. This is a game like you could just bring out and play with family and friends and not have much difficulty there at all, and have a lot of fun. So especially if you got people that can understand more complicated trick-taking games and other stuff, this game is really definitely up to that. And you can pretty easily explain it. So that's my thoughts on Blaze. Thank you for watching.